think Egypt said she was talking about learning to not try to control things that you cannot control. What am I'm saying that for a specific reason. And I think Amina said it on last week's podcast, how it is exhausting to try to control every single thing that your child does. You're gonna wear yourself out. It is super, super important to be the influence that you can be at the designated time when they're in your presence, when you're talking to them and different things like that. But sometimes life is gonna life.
Let's do it, baby.
Let's go, all right?
What we do.
Welcome to another edition, right, of
Yes.
A Father's Heart podcast with your boy, Sean and Cole.
Cole.
And
George.
George. What's good?
What's happening?
Don't be silly, man.
Man.
Listen, man, it's definitely an honor to be here, to rock out again in front of these beautiful women, man, who are raising kings.
Yes.
Come on, get your hands. Well,
Yes,
you got
yes.
food. Come on.
Yes.
Or you can do the raising.
A little snap. There we go.
Yeah, raising kings. So we
Man.
are, man, it's an honor. So talk to me, man. What's been popping?
Nothing much. I really enjoyed the first half of what we did today. A lot of the information that I thought I was going to be sharing, our co-hosts have already. So we're going to wing it, but we're still going to have a good time.
but this is my thing. Like, I know I hung around Cole quite a bit before.
Yeah.
But today I realized, like, this brother's like 8 feet tall.
What?
He's tall, bro.
It's the head.
No, it's not the hat.
Definitely.
It's not the hat. It's not the hat at all. It's not the hat at all.
I think I started maybe in December. That's when y'all brought me on board. And me and him realized when he walked in, this is our first time meeting in
So this is
person.
our first time meeting.
Is
This is
that
our,
right?
it's our first time meeting in person today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
meeting in
That's
person.
what's up.
Seemed
man.
like we've known each other for a very long time.
Yeah.
But today is our first time meeting in person. So
That's cool, man.
that's what's up.
Well, yo, let's tap into it, man. Let's tap into it. So, Cole, I want you to start this thing off, man. Is that, you know, honestly, I see the work that you do, right? Like, you are in the jails and you working with parents. But the crazy thing about it, and I think I knew you raised boys, but I didn't know you had so many.
Yeah.
You did it by yourself.
Yeah. Let me.
And you was a young daddy.
Yeah. All that.
So,
All that. So
yeah.
just to get some context to everybody in this space, so I was 16 when I first became a father. So my son was born December 30th, 1994. He was 7 pounds, 3 ounces, 21 inches long, 9:55 in the morning. Yeah. No, and the reason why, you're right.
ask me.
Right.
Don't ask me. Do not ask
My
me.
kids was born ish.
Somewhere in there.
You got the ballpark.
Right. And really the reason why I remember that date, because that was the first time I remember feeling visible. So when I think about being a 16-year-old boy and the experiences I had and then becoming a father, when I looked down at him and he looked up at me, that was the first time I felt seen. And so to imagine going through your life as a boy, a black boy, and not feeling seen until a child sees you was really impactful for me. And so the first time I had ever been called a dad was when the doctor said, "Hey, Dad, do you want to cut the umbilical cord?" And so when I separated him from his mother, I was like, oh, so this fatherhood? And I had no context to fatherhood outside of, what was his name? Michael Landon. Anybody know who Michael Landon is?
Yeah.
From Little House on the Prairie?
Like my daddy.
Yeah, he did. So Michael Landon was my guy, and then I won't say, but Heathcliff Huxtable was my guy, and all these other guys on television played the role of my father. And so I think part of this work today, or just our conversation and why we're even here, is to talk about the fact that media plays a huge role in how our kids see themselves, right? And so I think for me, fatherhood was shaped from my experiences of watching television, but when the television was off, I had no real connection to father other than when the doctor said I was gonna be a dad. And so fast forward, I went from raising my own son and becoming a single parent at 17, And that's a whole nother conversation. We might touch points if that's a question that is asked about where his mom went, to raising boys in the foster care system. And so fast forward, I started working for an agency, and I started seeing young men who looked like me that were coming in and out. I went home at the time my son was 13. I said, hey, son, people said we should become a licensed foster parent. What do you think? He was like, sure. 10 years later, when asking him that question, why did he say sure? He said it was because I thought I'd have help with chores. So that was his.
Are you serious?
That was his response.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, what? You know what we went through? Right. But I have been blessed to raise 8 sons, 2 who entered into the juvenile justice system, which led me into that system. Many of my sons through the mental health systems, and ultimately 2 of my sons into the prison system. And so them entering into those spaces brought me into those spaces, which brought me in wanting to understand the families and the kids that were in that space. And that's really how my journey really started. But it started because I believe that fathers have a responsibility not only to support their own children, but also support the children outside of their front yard.
Yeah.
And so that's been
Yeah.
how I got there.
No, so that's super dope, man. I appreciate your story.
Yeah.
My thing is, it's like, you know, as a single dad raising these sons, you didn't have an example, as you
Right.
said. You didn't have an example.
Yeah.
And it can be mad difficult raising a boy today with social media, struggling with this toxic masculinity, regular masculinity, or whatever. Like, the game is
Different.
It's different, man. You know, but my thing is, man, like, how do you even begin to raise a boy today? Navigating the system, bro.
Well, you raise a boy the way you raise girls. And I speak to that, right? Never raising girls, so I know I have to be careful when I say that. But you raise boys with a level of humanity. I think that what happens to us is that we all have a definition of what masculinity is, right? And so as a mother, you may have gotten a definition based on your experiences with what it means to be a man. So I think sometimes whatever we define masculinity as, we might put those labels or that box on our own sons, not realizing that we're sort of boxing them into this space. So I think for me, I had to learn how to be okay with recognizing that I needed to be human in the space so that I could show up. But man, I was horrible. I was worse because I bought into the masculinity, the box that you don't cry, you toughen up. I got to turn boys into men. You can't come out of my house not hard. You got to be ready for the world. And I was so rah that I missed the opportunities. Over time I got there, but I missed these opportunities in the beginning stages to be vulnerable, for them to see me cry, for them to recognize that I make mistakes. But I had also bought the prescription of, like, I have to be this type of guy to move these boys into a space where they can survive in the world. But it took so much, it was so much of what we talked about earlier. It was so much internal work that I had to do to get rid of all the ideologies that I had bought into and had practiced for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, man? Because I know you got a tribe. You got a bunch of kids.
You said, "Man, you got to try a bunch."
You asking how my journey started? What's your question? You gotta make your question. You gotta make your question.
With your tribe.
Okay. So Cole had a fabulous story. I had 6. That's how my journey. That's how my journey started. But with my wife, she's back there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying that to say, I got the floor. Let me have the floor.
I'm sorry.
I said all that to say I did not know what I was doing then, and I know what I'm doing now. And my oldest is 21 years old. And I wanted to say that it's a couple things that I want to say just based off of what was said earlier. One of the most important things Jordan said is you're gonna have to unlearn to learn. Yeah. Sometimes we can get in a place where we're raising our children for our day instead of their day.
That's good.
This is a new day. They have access at the palm of their hands to stuff that we had to sneak and hide and everything else. And there's always going to be distractions and stimulants and different things like that that can knock your children's sons off track, right? Another thing, I think Egypt said, she was talking about learning to not try to control things that you cannot control. I'm saying that for a specific reason. And I think Amina said it on last week's podcast, how it is exhausting to try to control every single thing that your child does. You're going to wear yourself out. It is super, super important to be the influence that you can be at the designated time when they're in your presence, when you're talking to them and different things like that. But sometimes life is going to life them.
Yeah, that's good.
Sometimes life is going to life them. I talk very openly.
Yeah, I know. I was waiting. I wanted to.
I talk very openly about my oldest son, who is 19. Me and him happen to be in a great place now, and my wife will attest to this, from the ages of about 15 and a half to about 18, late, yeah, that's her. Late 17, me and him could not be in the same room and I've been there since day one, and I thought I did everything that I was supposed to do, learning from my upbringing, learning from my education, learning from my experiences. I explained how I worked in schools with boys and different things like that, but we were oil and water for a very long time. And I want to shout out to one of my good friends, Ian Bryant. Back in the day when I was young and I had my rebellion stage, I was a rapper. I was a gangster rapper, right? And so I found out maybe about 2 years into his career that my son was also a gangster rapper. Now, I worked hard, my wife worked hard, so we can keep them from the life that I had to live or whatever. But some kind of way he gravitated, you know what I'm saying? And he got busy, got active, as they say. And so I'm sitting in the garage, and Ian was a part of my rap group. And I'm sitting there, me and him, we was having a social night or something like that. And I played it for him. I'm playing my son's son. I'm playing him my son's song. And I am mortified with the things that comes out of, that's coming out of his mouth. And he's sitting there with a straight face, and he looked at me like, "You want to know what he sound like?" And I'm clueless, right? And he looked me dead in my eye and he said, "You." And so that shifted the way that I started dealing with my son, because instead of dealing with him from a 44-year-old, well, at the time, probably about 42-year-old perspective, I started dealing with him from a 19-year-old perspective. A lot of times we be expecting our boys to respond to stuff like we respond to it at the age we are now. They haven't learned. They haven't bumped their heads. They haven't made the mistakes to correct. Men, in my experience, we learn from mistakes and we learn from loss. Yeah. So some of the head bumping is going to be necessary so we can correct, adjust, and get ourselves back on track. Now, am I saying throw them to the wolves, let them do what they do, or different things like that? I'm not saying that, but I am definitely saying when it comes to young boys, pick your battles.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying? Do your very best to pick your battles. Otherwise, like she said, trying to control everything. Nope, don't do that. Don't touch that. He's going to do exactly the opposite of what you're requesting that he do, because he's going to want to know. Just like when we was little, don't touch the stove. As soon as you get out of eyesight, what you about to do? You about to go touch the stove.
He likes to respond.
That's what we do. So picking battles, unlearning some things, realizing that our age, us being middle age or older, they haven't learned different things yet. And just because we say it, and I think every parent here is going to agree, there's every parent of older, I'll say teen, there's going to be some stuff that your children are going to do just because you said don't do it. It's going to come a time when they just not going to listen. Yeah. I remember in speaking with that son, at one point, we were like best friends. He wanted to be up under me. He wanted to be up under me. He wanted to, everywhere I went, he wanted to go. And we talked to me about everything. And then it's like teenage years hit and a light switch. And so I'm looking at a stranger. He's looking at a stranger. And like I said, we couldn't be in the same room. I would tell my wife all the time, if this wasn't my boy, and we've been real in here, we've been safe in here, so I'm going to say something that I ain't never said to nobody in my life. I would tell her all the time, if this wasn't my boy, he is not the type of man that I would be around. Yeah. And then I had to look in the mirror.
That's good.
Somewhere in there, I missed a few things. Somewhere in there, I didn't connect like I thought I was connecting. Now, I don't know how much time I got. I know a little bit about it. My father was present, but provision was a struggle sometimes. So for me, I went crazy with the provision, meaning I'm working. And so my son took that as, you don't want to be around me. You've got to be aware of your trauma. You've got to be aware of the things that you're working out. A lot of us are parenting while healing.
Yeah. Say that again.
A lot of us are parenting while healing. A lot of us are parenting while navigating the things that happen with our parents, the things that happen with the relationship with that child. And I'm gonna say this last part, and I promise I'm gonna get out your way. But one thing that that happens, that comes across a lot because by the time single mothers come to me, and I want to tell you this, give yourself some grace. By the time single mothers come to me or bring their sons to me, everything is so explosive, they're so tired, they're so exhausted, because self-care, what's that? Who got time for that? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Sleep, who got time? Who got time for that? Financial, who got time? These bills ain't stopping because you tired. Yeah. So by the time they get to me, they're so wore out and they're so tired. So give yourself grace because there's no manual to this. There's no, and that's whether you're single parent, that's whether you in a 2-parent household, that's whether it's blended. There's no man. All of us is kind of like on the job training. Yeah. So you got to give yourself a break. You got to give yourself some rest. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about your mind, your body, and so. And I see sister looking at me like, it's okay. You doing what you can do, and that's all you can do, is what you can do.
What's up, Father's Heart podcast family? Yeah, we have sponsorships now, and this week's sponsor is none other than Involved Dad. So listen up, fathers. Are you looking for a deeper understanding to understand fatherhood and make a positive impact in your children and families' lives? Look no further than Involved Dad, right? Where we create strong fathers through fatherhood engagement, right? It's extremely important for children to have fathers that are not only showing up, but they are showing out, that they are fully invested, they are fully engaged. So this week's sponsor is an agency, man, that knows the ins and outs of fatherhood and know how to strengthen families, know how to fill the gaps and connect families to the right resources so they can live their best lives and become more and more successful. So listen, if you need assistance, if you know someone who needs help on fathering, on parenting, co-parenting, or a father that is just struggling, right? That he does not know how and what to do about his next move, because this game that we call, this life that we live, sometimes, man, it's like a game of chess, right? Like knowing your next move. And at Involved Dad, what we do, we help fathers make their next best move. So reach out to us, right? The number is 313-757-1388, and you can find us on the web as well, and that is involveddad.org. No S, because a lot of people put Involved Dads, although we want Involved Dads, but it's involveddad.org. So yes, listen, don't be average, you might as well be elite in your parenting and in fatherhood.
Yeah.
But they'll come and they'll be talking about certain characteristics or qualities of the father that's maybe not around or maybe partially around, and they're doing their very best to discipline it out of the boy, out of the son. The issue with that is a lot of times those qualities or characteristics are, number one, what initially attracted you, and now it's not that it's bad, it's a trigger for you, right? And so, number two, those qualities and characteristics are vital to their growth. The issue is it hasn't been developed and cultivated. So you don't want to discipline it out, you want to cultivate it and develop it so they don't, because that's what happened with the fathers. The fathers had them same qualities, but it was never cultivated. Nobody took the time to develop it, and so now it's out of place, but it's triggering you because you just like your daddy, or even if you don't say it, you thinking it, or you looking at, you know what I'm saying? And so you're like, stop that, and they don't need to stop. They just need to do it in moderation, or they need to do it cultivate. I keep saying the same word, but you have to develop those qualities, not whoop it out, punish it out, take away, privilege it out. It's supposed to be there. It's supposed to be there for who they are, because even if he's not around physically, biologically, that man is in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's real.
He in there. And a lot of people don't like to hear that, but we deal with facts, not feelings when it comes to rearing, because I'm going to tell you something. I am a black boy that grew up into a black man. And I'm going to be 45 this year, and I'm still figuring it out. None of us got it all. But he in there, and so the bet, you're not gonna get him out. You're not gonna whoop him out. You don't punish him out. You kick him out. You're not gonna kick him out. He in there, and so we gotta find those qualities. We gotta find those characteristics, and we gotta do our very best to develop them. Jordan, you said something really good. You said you start getting around men that you would like your son to emulate, or men that you would like your son, and it's important. It's important, and these things don't happen overnight. I know some of y'all like, that's easier said than done. I get that. I totally understand that, but like, put the intention in. You know what I'm saying? And over time, you know what I'm saying, just a village is important, but I would be naive to sit here and say everybody got one. That's just not,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying, that's not the reality. Some people are in here on fumes right now. Some people on autopilot right now at the moment. So
no,
go ahead. I'm gonna stop because I'll get
No,
around.
I was
I was just
gonna-
going to say where he said it's a good segue is that when he's talking about you can't beat it out, right? And that you have to recognize and cultivate. And that brings me to one of the ways that I parent, but specifically my son. My son is the youngest of his siblings, right? And so he may have mannerisms that's like his sisters, or he may say things that's like his sisters, or behaviors, right? And so me, I can be this man where I'm like, yo, I can go crazy. He doesn't know. He's just around his siblings. He's being who he is, right? And so I had to be and am very intentional on how I navigate my son, because I want to give him the tools. Because right now, while he's being the youngest and his sister's beating his tail, they can beat his tail, right? But guess what? He 11. But eventually, he's going to get bigger. He's going to get stronger. And so what I'm looking at is like, I don't want my son, when he turns 17, 18 years old, that a trigger for him is his sisters used to whoop his tail. And so now when a woman talks slick to him, guess what he can do? He can use his hands, right? So where something that was just so minute, we're not thinking about it, I'm like, yo, I need him to name it. And what am I talking about naming? I'm talking about naming the emotion you feel. See, for a dude, we'll say, I'm pissed, I'm mad, I'm angry. But when we get to the root of it, you jealous, you sad,
Embarrassed.
you embarrassed, you hurt, you scared. And so it come out in an aggressive way because I can get you off my back. And I can talk slick to you and I can talk angry towards you because I'm going to get you off my back. And so I'm very intentional that when my son shows emotion, if he's crying or if he's upset, I'm not kicking his back in. I'm like, oh, here's opportunity. Where some of us, we get pissed and we get mad, we want to shut it down. I don't have time for that, instead of looking at it for as opportunity. I need you, why are you crying? Because I'm mad. Yeah, I get it. I get you mad, but why are you mad? And so now I get to the root of it. I can't control the situation, Dad. Oh, boom, now we get into it. Since you can't control, this is the way our autopilot right now, I can just be mad and, just yell or cry, but I need you to name it. And so once I'm able to help my son be able to identify his feelings, now he knows when it comes up, he's like, oh, that's what this is. He can self-regulate. Oh, you know what? I'm really embarrassed and it's all good. How do I manage this? Where I'm not going to call a woman out her name, where I'm not going to put my hands on a woman. So you as a mom, when you at the crib, if your son is showing emotion or showing a behavior that you don't think is cool,
Or manly.
Yeah. Think about it. He's doing it for a reason.
Yeah, it's in there.
He's doing it for a reason. So as much as we want to dismiss it and we don't like it, that's not going to change it. So all we do, just like us, we just know how to conform, right? Like I'm just not going to do it while you're around, but when you're not around, I'm going to get busy. And so it's the best thing for us to do when they present it to us, is to help them name it. Help them articulate when they come in the house and you say, how's your day? And they say, it was good. All right, why was it good? And stay there. Be okay with silence.
Yeah.
And he may not know how to communicate, to give long sentences to say all of these things. But we just want him to start thinking about being able to express what's taking place. It took me almost 40-something years to tell my wife how I was really feeling. Because it was easy for me to shut down. Easy for me to shut down and go into my cave.
Can you confirm? Okay, cool.
I mean, I'm gonna keep it 100. I know, because she was a talker. She's a talker, want to communicate right now. And I'm like, yo, I need about 3 days to process this. I don't want to talk about it right now. And so I had to learn how to communicate.
Yeah, I was gonna say part of that also too is how do I become something I don't see? So part of it is about what do they see when you communicate, right? So when you're frustrated about something or you're disappointed about something and you've hurt and you're worried, how does your communication show up? Because one of the things that often is reflection. So our children are mirrors. And so sometimes they're looking through their communication lens can be reflected from the way in which you communicate. It can be reflected from the way the village communicates, whoever their village is. And most boys that we interact with oftentimes are raised primarily by women in their villages. And so it's really important to sort of assess where you are. I mean, we talk a great deal about self-care, but it's hard to practice self-care when you're not healed yourself. And it's hard to heal when you are autopilot, I think I heard you say. So I think part of this is also doing some internal work for yourself around what's happening with me. Because the more you do that work, the more you are able to show up for your sons because you practice a level of grace and mercy for yourself. But that also requires intentionality. That also requires accepting where you are and what you've been through, but being willing to make that change. And that is we hear saying it, but I think we've got enough collectively, if we were to add our years together, to say, man, we're constantly growing. So that was one thing I think stood out for me. But Sean, I want to go back to you a little bit, right? Because part of the reason that we're even in this space is that we're talking to moms who are raising sons, and some moms raising sons without a male, a caretaker or someone in their village. You work heavily with men. Yep. So can you speak to us around what is going on with men? What are some of the challenges that men are experiencing? What are you seeing in your work? And what can moms do to find healthy men to be able to get that network and support? So can you speak to what your work is, what you're seeing in your work? Yeah.
And so I'll say this, man, is just, and I don't justify, and if you guys see me on social media or know the work that I do, we hold our fathers and men accountable, right? But the reality of it, just keeping it 100, broken boys become broken men. And 90% of the men that come through my doors, and these are grown dudes, grown men. Most of them that come through my door is broken, straight up broken. They have a mask on, they come sit in the seats, they just like, she won't let me see my son. She won't let me see my daughter. She this, she that. And we just let them vent, we let them talk the whole nine, but we know, right? And so we just want to get by it. But when we start unpacking that thing, they know where they went wrong, right? But when we get to the root of it, most of them broken because dad wasn't there. And it's not to justify, right? But it's the reality of it, is that a lot of them don't know how to father. A lot of them don't know how to love a woman the way that she need to be loved, right? Because, you grow up in this locker room talk. We sitting there, how many girls you been with? How big are you? Like, you always sizing up, right? You always sizing up. And so then here you are you in a leadership position of your home, and bro, you don't know how to lead. And so the first thing that a lot of them do is run, right? They run, and they may even stay there, but they run emotionally, they run mentally, because they don't know how to fight, because they've never been there. They've been running their whole lives, right? And so that's what I'm seeing with a lot of the men that we're working with. And so if there's any form of opposition, a lot of times, man, they're out. And so that's one of the reasons why we exist, is to teach them how to go back, take responsibility for your actions, you know what I mean, and try to restore or salvage what is left, right? So that's what I'm seeing a lot in a lot of men that I work with, is that these jokers they hurting, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you put, they look at the woman putting pressure on them. You ask them questions, it's just like, you know what, this is too much. I'm out. I'm out. You know what I mean? It's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's, and that's what I'm seeing, just keeping it 100. That's what I'm seeing, man.
Yeah. Okay.
I need to go back to something. You was talking about your son and how you, when he's talking or when he's expressing, you say to him, no, name the, and the first thing that he says is, I'm mad. So this is men in general, there's typically two accepted emotions, and that starts when we're young: aggression and anger. If you sad, stop being a girl. If you upset, if you embarrassed, we get that stuff ingrained in us from childhood. So one of the first things Cole asked, matter of fact, it was the first thing he said, what do you all need to make this space safe? And I'm saying that to say this: the world is going to teach your son that all he can do is be mad and be angry. So maybe consider having a conversation and saying to him, when you express an emotion to me, to mom, what do you need from me to be safe? So he can know how to say, I'm sad. So he can know how to say, I'm embarrassed. So he can know how to say, otherwise, all the world is going to teach him is you can be angry or you can be aggressive.
And can I add, so I want you to keep going, but with that, I think that's great, is even getting him to a place to where he understand what those words mean.
Yeah.
Right? Because, he may not know what embarrassed is or sad is.
Yeah.
So.
And all I wanted to say is this, and Jordan in Egypt talked about apologizing. Everybody don't believe in apology. You'd be surprised how many people come and I'm like, well, they'll know they're wrong, right? And it's not just mothers, it's fathers, especially fathers. But they'll know they're wrong, know they made a mistake in regards to their children. I say, well, did you apologize? What you mean? That's my kid. You know what I'm saying? People they feel like that. Make the space safe with the boys. You have to be willing to hear some things about yourself that you don't want to hear. That's tough. Because if you're around my age, that was not when we was coming. You don't get to express, Mama, I didn't like how you did that, or Daddy, that was not a thing. At least in the household, that wasn't a thing. Like, I didn't get to start expressing myself to maybe about 27 or something like that. And still, I'm like, when I'm expressing, but
that's heavy. That's heavy what you just said, right? The fact that you didn't have an opportunity to express yourself in the home, where the home is supposed to be the incubator for all things, right? And so that you don't get to express yourself in the home that's the safe space, so then you explode out in other spaces trying to find it. So I think that's powerful in what you're saying, George, because the home is the one place where I should be able to go and unpack everything.
And be exactly who you are.
And be who I am.
I mean, and within reason, like, I ain't, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to tell you to let your kids try you or anything like that. There has to be structure. There has to be order. But at the time, if you're creating a true safe space where you really want that son to learn that different range of emotions that he can express and stuff like that, then your response to whatever he says is going to determine whether those are acceptable in the future or not. So if he says to you, I'm sad because my feelings got hurt, I'm like, what you sad for? Get up, boy. You know what I'm saying? Or something like that, then it's going to reinforce what the world has already told him, which is men can't be sad. You know what I'm saying? Or men can't express any other emotion. So it's just important. The point that I really want to say is be willing to hear some things about you. Your kids know you, and just from personal experience, because I allow mine to talk. And if they're around you more than anybody else, you think they really don't know what they talking about. You know what I'm saying? When they tell you something, even if it's something you don't, like my children, my oldest two more so, have gotten me together multiple times. I don't always like it.
Yeah.
I don't always appreciate it. And sometimes when they're giving me dollars, I'm giving them change. I'm telling them, oh yeah, but when I go back and reflect, and I think about what they're saying, and the fact that they around me more than just about anybody else in the world, They can't always be wrong.
Yeah.
The problem is, in many cultures, in the black culture, we are taught that our children are our property and not little humans with feelings.
So an example of that, you were to be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
We taught
And
that.
Yeah.
We taught that they're our property. And I'm not saying that it's directly, but from what we've seen and what we've heard, we're taught that they're our property. Do as I say, not as I do, and all that jazz and different things like that. And then they little mini versions of you, and you can't see it because you're looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
Or you don't want to see it because you know you're looking in the mirror.
One of the things I want to bring up is because, my area is allowing, is working with the fathers, right, and making sure that the fathers show up right. So I wonder, it's important for me to bring this part up, is that statistics, right? I can show you a lot of statistics that shows when a father is not involved. And it's crazy that even the statistics is worse if a father is not involved versus if a mom is not involved, right? A mom can not be involved and, it's not healthy, right? But statistics show that children have a much difficult time excelling, right? And so, number one, I want you to know that you should not feel guilty if dad does not want to be involved. That's not on you.
At no point is it on you.
It's not on you.
Yeah.
Even with the data. So I bring the data, I make that statement, but I go further with this part, is that I don't want you to make a decision to let dad in if it's going to cause trauma and if he's putting his hands on you and it's causing more conflict. It needs to have boundaries. We want him to be involved. I want dad to be involved. That's why we call involved dad. But I am encouraging you to establish boundaries when he does show up. Cole, you said something to me in the car.
Yep.
Could you expound on it?
Yep, I'm a firm believer that one of the best things that we can do for fathers who may not have all the skills, right? And they haven't had all of the work and the opportunities and the resources. But what we can do is keep a door and a window cracked open for him. Because one day he might come in, one day he might, but if the door is constantly shut and the window is constantly shut and he's already vulnerable in terms of not feeling confident in his role, then he will believe that he can't show up at all. And then what he will start to do is not show up because he believes that he can't do it anyway. And I think another perfect example of that is what we see happening in hospitals when fathers try to hold their children and they don't hold them right. What's the first thing people do? Give me back my baby. In that first stage, he is vulnerable, he is worried, he's got all the feelings too, but he got to mask it. But if he doesn't feel confident and we don't nurture him through that process, then it becomes challenging. So I think it's so important to keep the door cracked open and a window cracked for him because some dads do turn it around, and so we have to hold space for that. As challenging as it might be, there are some dads that really, actually, truly turn it around.
And I just wanted him to say that because I do see an influx. Let's just keep it 100, man. I do see an influx of men who batter, right? And a lot of it goes undocumented, right? Victims or survivors don't share it, right? And so I just want to save space, for you as women, is that when you do allow dad to come back, is that you have to have parameters. You need to have guidelines. And I'm specifically talking to those who have been absent and then they want to reappear, right? As those are the ones that you just have to make sure that you have, because you don't want your child to be re-traumatized. And I'm not saying it for you to be the gatekeeper and say, well, I make the rules.
Yeah.
I just want you to, because, at the end of the day, honestly, you guys do have power, right? You do have power. You have the ability to say if you can see your child or not. And so my thing is just use what you have with wisdom, right? And keeping your child, keeping your son, your daughter at the center of it all. right? Who do they need me to be at this moment? Will this father, you know, in spite of me and him having a bad relationship, he done cheated or he got another baby mom, whatever it is, does that impact him as a father?
Yeah.
Our relationship is whack, but how is his relationship with the child? And that's what we want to try to keep that focus, because your son does need him, right? And I'll shift to this, and we can go into this conversation. If dad does not come home, if dad is not involved, what do we do? Right? What do we do? And so let me tell you this: people say all the time, a woman can't raise a man. I get what they're saying, but I know many women who have raised amazing boys into men. Is it better for both? Could be absolutely. But women are well able and capable to do it. That's just like if you walk in and you hurt one leg and you limping, eventually, what you do? You adjust. You make it happen, right? It's not the ideal thing. It's not the best walk, but you adjust. We adapt.
Yeah.
Right? And so one of the things that I say, and if we can talk about this, one of the things that I think that you can do is one of the most important things, I think, as a mom, is try not to emasculate your son. I don't know the psychological thing about, I can't speak to the data, maybe he can, or whatever, but it's
Nobody likes to be ill.
nobody, that's true, but it hits different where boys would be in the where that is something that will really deal with a man's ego, right? If he's being talked down on, that's how he appears it. That's how he receives it. So I just want you to just be mindful when you are communicating with him and driving your point home of what you want him to do, how you communicate.
And how you communicate isn't just verbal. Nonverbal communication could tell children and people just about anything. So, you got to be careful with your face. I have a face, so you'll know what I'm feeling just about how I look. So oftentimes I have to be careful about my nonverbal just as well as my verbal, because both of them can, give a different level of communication. I think something else, man, you said something else. Oh, I want to speak to just the flip side of this, right? So I'm sitting in this space as a father who raised a child without a mother. And I can tell you, there were things I enjoyed about raising him without his mother. And I'm just going to keep it 100 with you. Part of it was I got to hold on to the narrative about how people perceived her. So people would say, where's the mother? Man, she ain't around. Oh, she's not around? So you got for real. So there would be some other stuff that come with that. But right, somebody know what I'm talking about. But I bought into the narrative of like being able to not bash her, but that became a lot of like respect and love and like support because I was doing it on my own. And so I bought the narrative of that feeling with something that I kind of held on to a little bit. And it wasn't until now, it took us him to turn 18 for us to find ways to co-parent. But one of the things that she said was so brilliant to me. She said, you made it so easy. You made it hard for me to co-parent with you because it looked like you were doing it without any pressure. It was easy. And I was like, well, no, it was hard. What you talking about? I didn't have you, it was hard. But what I found myself doing is I kept doing everything. I was doing so much of it that she didn't feel like there was a space for her to come in and help me out. And I'm like, well, all you have to do is show up to the parent-teacher conference. So I'm doing all of that. But I thought to myself, man, even though I was saying that, I really wasn't doing that. And so it really hit me really hard to recognize, man, the narrative sometimes can be something that we hold on to because I didn't know. Yeah, I was a single parent, but I really wasn't. I had a whole lot of people that were supporting me. And so I really had to understand, like, what did that look like? But that narrative and how people make you feel sometimes, both positive and negative, was something that I really had to understand. And on the flip side of that too, I've been in spaces with mothers and we were in there together sharing these narratives and just kind of like bonding with the trauma of being a parent without another parent to support you. Now, some people, they see it as trauma. Others like, listen, I had to do what I had to do. But I think to recognize the fact that, man, it's a lot of work to be able to unwrap that narrative to say, actually, I do need help. And to recognize, man, her and I could have parented if I also had not bought into the narrative that I was accustomed to as a single father raising a child too, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead, George.
So we gonna let George do the close out, and then we do
Oh,
legit,
shoot.
not
Yeah, we
legit,
doing a
and
legit?
then we get to our questions and answers, man.
No, because we about to close it out. Mothers, I want you to look at me.
Uh-oh.
I don't
Oh,
know.
he
I
took
don't
his
know what. I
glasses
don't
off.
know what you said that triggered this, but I done had this conversation so many times. Please hear me. If your son is between the ages of 12 and about 16, he is going to masturbate.
Oh, yeah.
No. Let me finish.
No, go ahead.
Because when them conversations come in, based on religious beliefs, based on cultural beliefs or traditional beliefs, those are some of the hardest. And let me get to my point. How you respond when that happens is going to start defining the way he views sex, and the way that he views use of sex and different things like. So if it's disgusting to you, it's going to be some stuff going on up there with him, and it's going to affect future relationships and partners and stuff like that. Now, am I telling you to buy him the lotion and all? I'm not saying any of that, but what I'm saying is be ready for that, so when it happens, you can respond in a way that don't totally demonize or even some cases criminalize a natural occurrence of puberty for young boys.
That's good.
Gotta have that conversation. Tell them you disgusting, tell them you gross. It happens so much. And so the boys are shamed and different things like that, and now they're sneaking and doing this and that. And I'm not saying you gotta talk about it every day, but I'm saying it's 9 out of 10 boys in those ages that's gonna be a part of it. And I don't wanna disrespect anybody's religious preference or belief or culture or anything like that, but it's natural. It is a part of that time. It is a part of puberty, and how you handle it, how you respond to it, is going to absolutely have some influence or effect on how he views sex going forward. So please brace yourself as best as you possibly can. Get some information if you can, some education about what's going on, or have an uncle on deck or granddad, have somebody on deck, so when that time comes, it's not an automatic, stop that, you disgusting. That is not a healthy way to handle that, and it has future effects. Please.
That's good.
That's it. I tell you it was close out. I don't know what you said that made me remember that, but I've had that conversation so many times. And the mother, she's like completely discombobulated and disgusted. He in the bathroom too long. The shower bin went off. You know, like, and so it's a part of it. It's part of it.
That's natural. Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, that is this segment, right? That is this segment. I think that's a
great way to wrap it up, Joe.
You know what? That could be our legit. Was it legit or not legit for George to end with that statement? I want to hear from you. Is that legit?
You got to tell them what legit and not legit is.
So legit.
Legit.
So it's legit.
Legit.
Oh, so they already know.
Okay. I appreciate y'all.
That's legit. That's legit.
You legit. You did great.
Yeah.
So you say it's legit?
He did great.
That's good. That's legit.
I said very legit.
That's valid. Yeah, that's legit.
Yeah. Have somebody ready, because
That's legit.
it's coming.
real.
It's coming.
A brother and a single mother. That was a
Yeah.
legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess we'd make that legit. So cool. Well, that is our episode of A Father's Heart podcast, and we are honored to have you guys in our presence doing it with us. All right, till next time, man. Don't be average. Might as well be elite.